Staff, led by Councilman Tony Stewart. Please rise.
Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, as we enter this Christmas season, let us pause and give thanks for all the ways that you have blessed our lives, this nation, and the city of Anderson. We pray that this season will be a time of joy for our families and a time for hope for the future. We ask that you will send your Holy Spirit to provide comfort and healing for those who are experiencing injury, illness, or uncertainty in their lives. Also, as we approach the ending of this year, allow us to remember friends and loved ones who have passed, and to find peace in your promise of everlasting life. God bless this council, the city staff, and all the city employees and the citizens of Anderson. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have a couple of items before we get into the body of our meeting. So, first of all, we have a special recognition, and I've said this before, and I think you guys always agree that it's always hard when we have folks that we've known for a long time that decide to retire. And so we're at this moment again with one of our fellow teammates, and I'm going to let David tee this up. David?
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll ask you to join me too. Miss Donna Kezia, come on up.
No crying?
It may happen.
That's okay.
It's
That's
not my
okay.
intention.
Well, I want to say several things. First, you're no stranger to the state. When I first got into, I believe, my master's degree, and started right into the field, quickly became to know you across the state, well-versed in human resources, but many other things. Consulting for cities across the state, for counties, working for the Appalachian Council of Governments. And then I was able to come here, and we had the opportunity to work together on numerous different projects. And then you decided to join the team here full time. And so that was a good jump, and we were very excited about it. And it's been 7 years. 7 years has gone by quick, and I had to relook at that number, and we goes by pretty quick. So, but I want to say thank you for everything you've done here, not only for the city, but in public service across the state. But here at the city, you were a senior advisor to myself, my team. It's meant a lot. We've been through a lot of different things. You've taken the Human Resources Division to new heights. Went in there, you modernized it from a technology standpoint to how we do benefits administration, and we have a welcoming and great place for our employees to come there to get all the resources they need. And the time that you take with each employee and your staff takes to them, and a lot of times their spouses, to explain the benefits and go through it with them goes a really long way. It goes a long way not only there, but you also, under Human Resources, you manage the health clinic. And so the health clinic's another great benefit that we have here at the City of Anderson for our employees, and is very busy. So it's a lot of juggling things around, because not only do they see our patients, our employees being patients when they're having a rainy day or not feeling too good, but also the pre-employment process, workers' comp, and all the other things that come along with it. And so, and then also I got to really point out, everybody's kind of forgotten about this one thing, but we had a pandemic, and that was very challenging to an employer, and at that time we were really on the forefront of what we should be doing for our protecting the City of Anderson employees. And in our unique situation, we have employees that couldn't stop doing their jobs, that couldn't go home, that have to work 24/7, that will be exposed, unfortunately, to the virus, and they were very quickly. Donna and I were on the phone nights, days. There was one weekend, I think, God, we must have talked 60 times. We made quick, good strategic decisions, a lot that weren't known to the public to protect our first responders, our utility workers, our public works workers, all our front line. And I really appreciate all the help there. And again, just overall, being a senior advisor to me, going to miss you, and but really appreciate your public service and everything that you've done for us. Thank you so much, Donna.
Thank you.
You know, and I'll read this too, but, you know, we've talked about this before, especially, you know, in regards to, I think, we have a seat at the table at the Appalachian Council of Government, and I always say, how do we steal Donna? You know, Jeff, Rick, y'all know, how do we steal Donna? But she's well respected throughout the upstate region, the state. And this presentation, one more thing, you know, and we've worked together on the Mayor's Committee of Disabilities, and she's been just so great in hiring so many people on our team that have disabilities, you know, and some of our hardest workers
That's exactly right.
or folks that we've hired that have special needs, and so I appreciate that. And so the plat says, Donna M. Kasich, in appreciation for 7 years of loyal and dedicated service to the city of Anderson and Anderson City Council, December 11th of 2023. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you. It's not wrong.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You know how.
I know you do. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'll be around. Thank you. Oops, sorry.
You didn't say this.
I won't. Everybody knew I did not want this to go today, but thank you. I truly appreciate council, and yes, this was a second career, a second thought to come here, and I don't regret it. And I had said I was going to stay 5 years, and it was 7. And you get old, and I am old. It's time to move on. I do want to thank my staff, Evelyn and Patrice, because I can't do it, just me. But also the division heads and the supervisors. We truly all work together, and it's a great opportunity. And COVID was bad, and there were literally Saturdays and Sundays for that whole 2 years. I called everybody who had COVID to see how were they doing. Were they well, not well, when they could come back? And people came up and thanked me for doing that we thought about them, that we cared enough to make sure that they were well and able to come back to work. And financially, the city helped. We provided leave time, and that was an excellent opportunity for the city to take care of our employees. And if nothing else, as I go and leave, I hope council continues to take care of our employees, because they are the major backbone to this organization. If we don't have them picking up the garbage and trash and providing police and fire protection, we've got nobody, and we can't exist here. And we really have made a great emphasis, salaries, and salaries are extremely important, but also the equipment for the employees so that they can continue doing their job. So I just hope that you continue that for them, not in my honor, but in the honor of our employees, to be able to take care of our employees in the future. But thank you all so much.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you, Donna. Still thinking about employees.
Our second item on our agenda is a proclamation. And I'm going to ask Gloria Vessels to come up and join me. Good. And again, these are moments that we, as a council, are milestones in our community, and this one is. And I will read the proclamation and explain why. And it's honoring D.B. Walker and Company Funeral Services, its 60th year anniversary. Whereas established in the fall of 1963 by D.B. Walker and 4 other men, the D.B. Walker and Company Funeral Service is celebrating its 60th year of serving the Anderson community. And whereas when establishing the business, D.B. Walker and his wife, Amanda, felt that citizens of Anderson needed to have more of a choice of whom to call for funeral services. And whereas D.B. Walker, who was a high school math teacher, started the process to become a funeral director and did his apprenticeship under Mr. David Lee. And whereas when Mr. Walker received his funeral director's license, he renamed the business from the Superb Funeral Home with Joe Sullivan as the funeral director to the D.B. Walker and Company Funeral Services. And whereas in 1991, his daughter returned to Anderson after a career in Washington, D.C. to assist her father in business, and at that time, he decided to build a new facility. The business has always been in its current location, and the existing building was constructed in 1992. And whereas the facility includes a chapel that seats 150 people, 2 viewing rooms, a casket selection, and a state-of-the-art embalming room. And whereas the day-to-day operations is managed by his daughter, Gloria Walker, and the staff is enhanced by Darrell Madison and several other dedicated and hardworking staff members. And whereas Mr. Walker was proud of his beginnings. He was born in Star, South Carolina, to parents who were sharecroppers. He has shown that through hard work, you can start a business from scratch and succeed. In 2014, he was interviewed, and at that time, he stated that the past 51 years has seen many struggles, but I have persevered. And whereas D.B. Walker passed away in 2017 at 100 years old, he was a husband, father, grandfather, friend, educator, businessman, or ordained minister, City of Anderson council member, serving that position for 22 years, and a U.S. Army veteran. And whereas the funeral home continues offering care and compassionate services, the D.B. Walker and Company Funeral Service has remained a pillar in the community, and we're proud to have such a long-standing business in the city of Anderson. Now, therefore, I, Terrence V. Roberts, Mayor of the City of Anderson, along with my fellow council members, do hereby proclaim and congratulate the D.B. Walker and Company Funeral Service on its 60th anniversary. The City of Anderson wishes to thank them for being a cornerstone business in the city, and we extend our best wishes and continued prosperity. Proclaim this 11th day of December of 2023.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
I thank the mayor for this, and I also want to give special thanks to Tony Stewart for, I guess, brainstorming this. I thank him so much. And I do have 2 of my staff members with me. I would like for them to stand where everybody can see them. I have James Brown. He's my senior staff member. And Miss Bevelyn Beatty, she's been with me all my life. What can I say? So anyway, I thank you all again. I hope you all have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I thank my dad for starting this business, and I'm doing my best to continue it. Thank you so much. Thank you again.
I'd just like to add, just to show you how dedicated, Gloria and her staff is to try to talk about the services that they offer in the community. This past Saturday at the D.B. Walker Park, in the pouring down rain, they still had an event in the park under our picnic shelter where they gave away hot dogs and talked about family planning and stuff like that. So Gloria, I just want to thank you for going that extra mile in the rain this past weekend to try to get the word out to the community. I know we can't predict the weather, but we went ahead and proceeded on with that event. So I appreciate all that you do for the community.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Our next item, we have another special presentation, which is going to be annual financial report for the fiscal year 2022-2023 from Green Feeney Copley LLP. Ms. McEwen.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So each year, we have the financial audit presentation presented to you, a summary of a lot of hard work. It's really a 6-month process. If not, like I say, the budget year-round of preparing for this audit. And the reason with that, and the name's changed a little bit over time with it used to be called the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, which I prefer the name because it's the highest level of governmental reporting that you can do as a state or local government. And we're proud to do that. We're proud of our finance team, led by Ms. Margot Martin. A lot of her team is here tonight, and we'll recognize them in a moment. With that, though, we'll get into this and call on, we had a new partner this year from Green Feeney and Cawley, Mr. Larry Finney. Known Mr. Finney for a long time as well. He taught classes for me in graduate school, so another one that has taught me a lot. But Mr. Finney.
Thank you, Mr. McEwen, Mayor, council members. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here, and it's nice to actually come to council. I have gotten to know several of you for a long time through the Municipal Association meetings and some other events, so thank you very much. So tonight, want to do two things basically. One is to spend a few minutes talking about the audit itself, the results of the audit, and then also to just kind of give you a very, very high level view of the city's financial condition as of last year end. I know afterwards you'll actually get copies of the financial statements, and so I always like to tell everybody when I do present that once you've had a chance to look at that, I know you really do have a good team. I'll talk about that more in a minute that can answer your questions, but if we ever need to come back to talk further, we'd be more than happy to do that. So I always like to start out because when we talk about the financial audit and the financial statements, everybody sees the numbers and the information, but what is just as important from our perspective that always doesn't get talked about a lot is what's behind the scenes, and that's the internal controls and the processes and the procedures that are happening day by day by day. That's what leads to what you see in the financial statements, but those financial statements are only accurate and complete and meaningful because of what that finance team, and actually even outside the finance team, what everybody else in the city is doing day to day. So the one thing I like to mention is regarding that is there is no perfect internal control system because none of us can have enough people to make that happen. So what your team does a really good job of, and I know that because we ask them a lot when we're here doing the audit, is what we call risk assessment. And that's the whole idea of, hey, how are our controls working? Where do we feel like we might be able to make improvements? Where maybe is the risk a little too high that there could be errors or whatever it may be? So that regular risk assessment is just really, really important. So having said that then, what you actually ask us to do is to perform our audit procedures, and the end result is the opinions that we issue. The financial statements themselves are actually the responsibility of the city. While we might physically prepare them, everything that's in there outside of our opinions is the result of what your finance team and the rest of your staff are doing day by day and week by week. So having said that then, the opinion that we issue at the end of our audit that's part of the financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2023 is an unmodified opinion. And I know that doesn't mean anything to anybody, but that is the best opinion that you can receive. And so whether you are Bosch or BMW or the city of Anderson, your goal is to receive that unmodified opinion. And that is what the city has received for this last fiscal year end. So I'm going to talk about them more in a minute, but I think that's a great place to just stop for a minute and say that is reflective of the good financial team that you have. And so Margot and Tamara and the whole team here, they really, really do a good job, and that's why you end up with the results that you do for the year. So let's talk a little bit about what the fiscal year-end numbers look like. So if you talk to somebody that's kind of in the municipal and finance world that's familiar with all that and say, if you can only look at one measurement to see how the city of Anderson is doing, what are you going to look at? And they're going to say, we need to look at general fund balance, because that's really going to tell us overall how we're doing. And so that's why we like to start out with that. Your overall general fund balance at year end was about $11.3 million. Some of that is set aside for some specific purposes, like that bottom bullet, the $500,000 that is part of what you passed in the 2024 budget to potentially be used. But what's left when it's all said and done is the unassigned fund balance for the city. And it's at $9.9 million at last June 30th year end, represents 30% of what your expenditures were for the year. And to kind of put that in perspective, so first I'll say that is a good, healthy fund balance, and you all ought to be pleased with what that looks like. Just to give you a little bit of perspective, the GFOA is the Government Finance Officers Association. It's a national organization that provides recommendations to local governments around the country. And right now, their recommendation is that local governments have a minimum of 2 months fund balance, or 16.7%. So obviously, sitting at 30% is a good, healthy place to be for the city. So you ought to be pleased with that as well. And I'd just like to remind you about why that is so important. And there's several reasons listed there, but probably the one I like to remind you of more than anything else is when we look at your fund balance at June 30th, your cash flow the second half of the year is going to be less than it is the first half of the calendar year. So your property taxes represent about 44% of your total general fund revenues. When we measure that fund balance at June 30th, you're going to have to go about 5 or 6 months before you're going to receive any more significant property tax revenue. So a big part of a good, healthy fund balance at June 30th is to help with cash flow through the rest of the calendar year. As far as how we got there for the year, your general fund revenues were about $34.5 million. And as a reminder, this was the 23 year was the year that you went through reassessment. So your millage was actually reduced due to reassessment. But even with that, you can see your general fund revenues were about $500,000 more than in the prior year, but also almost $3 million more than what you actually had budgeted. And a good bit of that was your property tax revenue still being higher than budgeted, even with the reassessment, as well as your business license collections being up a little over $800,000. The other probably biggest addition to that being over budget was your investment income revenue. I think most of you probably know interest rates have been a lot higher the last year and a half than they have been before. The reason I didn't put that on the slide, Mr. McEwen and the mayor and I talked about it earlier, that's actually non-recurring revenue. That's not necessarily revenue that you can count on every year. And so it's just a good reminder that that is non-recurring revenue. As far as the expenditure side, $32.7 million, and you can see pretty consistent. So about an $800,000 increase from where you were last year, and just a little under budget, again, primarily due to some vacancies throughout the year. Just to highlight probably 3 of your other more significant funds, your hospitality fund. You can see your fund balance is sitting at about 4.8 million. It decreased a little over $1 million for the year, and that's due to simply using it for projects you have, especially the city recreation projects. And then you've got your sewer and water enterprise funds. You can see the activity in both of those funds in terms of the net position continuing to increase. The thing that's not on the slide that I like to mention when it comes to these enterprise funds is when you talk to the bond world, the folks that do a lot of the financing, they're probably just as interested in how many days expenses do you actually have sitting in cash. And I actually talked to Walter with First Tryon, who I know you work with here, and Walter said right now their measurements still, they like to see at least 100 days of cash, of expenses sitting in your cash. Just to give you a feel, I wrote down your numbers here. So your sewer fund, days of expenses sitting in cash is 535 days. And your water fund is sitting at 183 days, so well above what we would like to see as far as that 100-day minimum. So you should be pleased with that as well. We always, too, like to just mention to you if there's anything upcoming, just from a big picture perspective to make you aware of. And there is, for the 24 year, there is a regulation through the Governmental Accounting Standards Boards that the city will implement. I'm not going to get into details. Just suffice it to say that when you purchased a number of similar assets that might be considered a group purchase individually, they might fall under your capitalization threshold. And GASB has basically said if the total of that group purchase is too big, we'd still like you to capitalize that instead of expense it. And so the city, for 24 years, is implemented a new capitalization threshold for group purchases to make sure that they're in compliance with that requirement. So good shape there. The other thing that we like to mention to you is that we're always looking to, when we're doing our test work, see how the city's doing in various areas of compliance. And I want to say overall the city does a great job. We found one instance with the ARPA activity this year where you had claimed reimbursement for the money and just did not end up recognizing the revenue side of it. It was really just an accounting matter. It's all been squared away. It's in great shape. You have all the money. You've got the cash. It was just the accounting for it was a little bit off. But going forward, we're in good shape, and that's already been addressed. The other document that you receive from us is what we call a management letter, and it basically has two things included in it. One is some required communication from us to you as council, because our formal relationship is with council. And so it addresses a number of different things. Basically, if there were any issues, if there's anything that we needed to make you aware of in terms of disagreements with management or any recommendations we needed to put in writing, we do that through the management letter. There were no issues. There really is nothing to address, but you'll still get that management letter from us, making you aware of that. And that's really it. So I want to mention three things in kind of finishing up. One, you've received that unmodified opinion, and you should be very pleased with that. Two, your overall financial condition is very good. You should be happy with where you are financially. And last of all, I want to make sure again that we recognize your finance staff. The audit went very, very well this year. And it went well this year because they did such a good job getting ready for us. And as Mr. McEwen mentioned, the audit, the preparation of the audit is kind of on top of everything else that they do day to day, and it does take a lot of extra time and effort. So Margot, Tamara, the whole team, thank you all very much for all of your hard work. And that is what I have, so I'll be glad to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Any questions?
We can hand out y'all a book that y'all can read and read,
These are hot off the press.
literally.
Well, if you ever have any questions, I'm sure Ms. Feeney will be open to address any of those questions.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
working
Mayor.
with
Thank you,
Yes,
council
sir.
members.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So the minutes of our November 13th meeting were emailed a little bit earlier after the last meeting, and also were included in your packet. Are there any corrections or additions to those minutes? Not hearing any, do I have a motion to approve? So moved. First by Dr. Thompson, second by Mr. Newton. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes of November 13th passed unanimously. We have a couple items of old business, and the first item is request second reading of ordinance 2323 to rezone 409 West Market Street from general commercial to RM10 multifamily residential. Ms. McEwen?
Thank you. This is a, what we call a referral to the planning commission. While not necessary by state law, it's customary for this council to have a look at the item first for consideration, and then refer it to the planning commission, then ultimately makes a recommendation back to council for approval, for changes, for zoning-related things. That's what we have in front of us. Mr. Maurice McKenzie, our planning and development director, will go over this item.
Okay, thanks, Mr. McEwen. This is in relation to 409 West Market Street. It's coming to you tonight for second reading. It came before you on first reading at your November 13th meeting. The applicant is seeking to rezone the property to RM10 multifamily residential in order to bring the property into zoning compliance. It's currently zoned GC, general commercial, and under the GC zoning regulations, single-family residential is not allowed. So it's considered a legal non-conforming use at this time. The applicant's wishing to rezone the property to bring it into zoning compliance. The house has been on that lot, for many years in use as a single-family dwelling. They've done some renovations to the house, and the intent is for it to remain single-family residential. So that's the reason for the rezoning. And in addition to it eliminating a non-conforming use, a couple of other supporting factors includes that this would be considered a downzoning, meaning that RM10 allows less intensive uses than GC general commercial. And also, this property is only about 1/3 of an acre in size, so developing it for commercial use would be a challenge unless you combined it with other surrounding properties. So just want to bring those to your attention tonight. But again, this came before you at your November 13th meeting. You approved it on first reading. The Planning Commission also considered it at their November meeting and also recommended approval of it as well. So again, this comes to you tonight for second reading.
Thank you. Questions? We talked about it a little bit at our last meeting. I think Mr. Roberts, Jeff Roberts, made a good point that is really kind of surrounded by general commercial. And I think we can always cross that bridge if we get to that. Comments? Any other comments?
I move that we accept it on second reading.
First by Dr. Thompson,
Second.
second by Mr. Lockridge. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously on the second and final reading. Our next item of old business, request consideration of an ordinance 2324, providing for the April 2nd, 2024 general election. Ms. McEwen?
Thank you. Mr. Frankie McLean, our city attorney, helps oversee our coordination with the elections office on preparation for our elections, and thereby we have to pass an ordinance. Mr. McLean.
Yes, council is required to pass an order setting the election for each election. The next election, this is ordinance setting the next election for April 2nd, 2024. Filing begins January the 18th through February the 1st. This runoff is set for Tuesday, April the 16th. We're requesting second reading of this ordinance. Set the election.
Thank you, sir. Pretty straightforward. Any questions of council, comments?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion we approve this.
Have first by Mr. Harbin, second by the Mayor Pro Tem. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously on the second and final reading. Thank you. We got 6 items of new business. And the first item is request consideration of a referral to the Planning Commission, a petition to revise the Planned Development District, that's a PDD, document of Cayfield Farms located at the corner of Midway Road and Cressy Roads. Ms. McEwen?
Thank you. Mr. McKenzie's office has been handling this application. Mr. McKenzie.
Thank you. This came before you in 2021 when you annexed about 50 acres and zoned it PDD, Planned Development District. And as you know, a PDD document describes all of the development details for a particular piece of property. So that was annexed in 2021. That document includes up to 159 single-family houses and average lot size around 8,600 square feet. And obviously, there are other development standards in that document as well. It's coming to you tonight because since the time you adopted it, the property has been sold. There's a new developer and builder, and they're wishing to revise some of the language to make it meet more of what they're wanting to construct on the site. They're still wanting to build single-family residential. In fact, they're wanting to reduce the number of lots from 159 to 124, which also lessens density, increases the average lot size as well. If that's all they were wanting to do, this would be considered a minor change, where this would not have to come back through the process. But they're also wanting to tweak some other language in there regarding setbacks and some lot widths, other things like that. They're also wanting to revisit some of the other language in the document. So by doing so, it becomes more of a major revision, if you will. And when going through a process like this, revising a PDD document, it is handled the same way as a rezoning. It goes before Planning Commission, then it comes back to you for consideration. The application is actually due tomorrow. We're just getting bits and pieces in now, but we'll have a lot more information beginning tomorrow. But again, when this comes back to you, you will have a brand new PDD document to review, along with a subdivision layout and other supporting documents. But again, this starts the public process. If you refer it tonight, it will go before the Planning Commission on January 2nd. Then afterwards, it will come back to you for consideration. And again, you'll have all of the information before you then.
Thank you, sir. Comments, questions? Ms. Roberts, Jeff?
I promise not to ask any hard questions, but, you know, we spent a lot of time on this when it came before us the first time. And we've always felt like we were reacting to these situations rather than getting ahead of them. So really my question is to Mr. McEwen. When in the process of going on through our comprehensive plan do subdivision regulations come up? I know we put some things in priority order, but hopefully they're coming up next.
Right, yeah, the comprehensive plan is nearing completion. The next piece would be the zoning ordinance, Unified Development Ordinance, but I believe the subdivision regulations can be revised simultaneously at the same time with that, because they do work together. So you want to have documents that, speak to one another and are consistent. So I don't have a date for that, Mr. Roberts, but I can certainly get you a better feel from our consultants as to when we'll do that. But that will be one of our next steps, obviously. It's our subdivision guidelines are aging, and to have a little more detail, that way you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you see a PDD document. You'll have a lot of, a list of uses and a lot of development standards that you've pretty much set the stage for over the years. Hopefully those will be included in those guidelines, so we don't have to be so repetitive.
I'll say throughout the spring. So it'll be, you'll have an updated timeline, my next council update email to you, along with some additional information when we'll be reviewing that as a council.
It'd be reasonable to expect they're going to be looking for some trade-offs if they're reducing lot number. Maybe they're looking for something else in exchange. We'll see what the language comes back, and we'll be keeping a close eye on it. I agree agree on referring it to the planning commission.
So I have a first by Mr. Roberts,
Second.
second by Mr. Martinez. Any further discussion, Mr. Stewart?
Do you think, once we hear back from the planning commission, do we anticipate possibly having a work session on what those changes may not be before it comes to council, so it won't be kind of like a big surprise?
We haven't discussed that yet, but we can certainly incorporate that into the timeline. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. I guess another comment would be maybe changes are market-driven, bigger houses. We talked about that before, how the market sometimes dictates the development. Interesting.
They appear to be a larger house footprint, more square footage with a little bit higher trim level inside.
Our next item of new business is request consideration to purchase handheld communication equipment for the police department. Mr. McEwen?
Thank you. One of our, of course, primary strategic goals is to provide a safe and secure environment. These radios meet the required mandatory communication emergency equipment for the police department, and Chief Stewart will go over this request and how it will be funded. Mr. Stewart.
Yes, sir. So this was the grant that we applied for. I'm very thankful to the South Carolina Department of Public Safety who applied for this at the end of March this year. It's a Justice Assistance Grant from the state. We applied for this for walkies. As you remember, I was here probably about a month ago. That was the car radios that we had asked for, but this is part of their larger project of our radios going from regular radios staying in 800 to having encryption, which means basically you will not be able to pick up the radio anymore with a scanner or that kind of technology. This did require a 10% match. We did put this out as a request for proposal. We were very specific on the type of radio that we wanted, as that's what Anderson County uses. And we wanted to be and conform to what the Sheriff's Office is using in all of their emergency services. We put this out. There was a sole bidder, Kimball Communications out of Hendersonville. It was the same vendor that we used for the car radios as well. So we are at this time ready to order these radios with your approval, and we will get the reimbursement back for 90% of this from the state.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions, comments?
Chief, who's doing your writing of your grants? You seem to be doing pretty well.
I have acquired that skill, I guess, through the years. So myself,
congratulations, you're doing great.
I also give Miss Tina Blakely credit too, and a few people that helped me along the way.
Well, thank you.
I will tell you the best thing is communication with the state. Never afraid to pick up the phone and call, and that's exactly what they're looking for.
You know, one of the things that Donna said was that we try to provide a good working conditions for the people that work for the city. And we also try to provide the very best of equipment for the city. And at one time when I was on city council, when I first began, there was a lot of complaining about the fact that we didn't have the right equipment and some of the equipment wasn't up to standards. And I think that that's changed. I think that we've got the best of the best. And I'm very pleased to see this. I'm very pleased to say that I would like to see this passed. Could we go ahead and let me make a motion that we go ahead and purchase this equipment.
First by Mr. Lockhart, second by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion? Comments? Mr. Holden?
Chief, when would delivery be, what's the delivery time frame and implementation of this? So basically, privileged information, police officers talking to each other is no longer public information.
So the time frame, the current radios we just ordered were for the cars. They are in shipment at this time. Installation is, we are very fortunate to have a county employee that works with us part-time to maintain a certification, and we'll use his ability and skills in Anderson County radio maintenance to install those. So that's at no cost, but it's a cost of us per hour He's going to do that and maintain his part-time hours by doing that. So it's a really great partnership with us in Anderson County to get this installed. But I don't know the exact lag time on the portable radios. I would guess it would be similar to the car radios, probably 6 to 8 weeks maybe to get
So
in.
by
and-
spring, we should be full implementation.
Yes, sir.
And by encryption, Chief, you're saying people still have scanners and they listen to communications and this takes it on a different frequency? Explain how it's encrypted.
So encryption is kind of like a coded network. You have to have that feature, like these are phase 1, phase 2 compliant, multi-phase. It's technology that the military has had for quite a while. It is now kind of trickling down into public safety. This has become a requirement for law enforcement. It has not become for fire and safety EMS.
Good. Any other questions? Got a first and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Our next item of new business is request consideration of Office 365 annual subscription for hosted emails and Microsoft Office. Ms. McEwen.
Okay, we're no different than anybody else. We use a lot of Microsoft products. So Mr. Jason Nissen, our IT director, will go over this item for you, Mr. Nissen.
Good evening, Council. We're, like David said, we're requesting consideration to renew the city's annual subscription, and this is for Microsoft Office 365 with a 3-year agreement. And basically, it covers all user licenses, server licensing, emails, file storage, and file collaboration. And it was last approved back in 2020. And basically, that's pretty much it. It's just time for us to renew, and we want to seek your approval for that. The cost did increase slightly. Main reason was Microsoft increased the cost for the licenses. The G1 licenses went from $8 to $10, and the G3s went from $20 to $23. But we have swapped out a lot of our old equipment, our OEM equipment, and those licenses, they pass with the machine. So when the computers are no longer used, then those licenses can't be used anymore. And so what that has done is caused us to use a bit, a few more of the G3 licenses due to that. So we've increased a few of those licenses over the last 3 years. But overall, we've been able to reduce the number. We went from a total of 513 to 495. Anyone have any questions or?
Probably a layman's question, but does a license assume that it goes to a particular device?
No, that's the good thing about these licenses. Back in the day, we used to purchase especially our office licenses from Dell, and they're all OEM, original equipment manufacturer, and those licenses, they die with the machine. They can't be transferred. You can't use them anymore. These licenses that we use here with Office 365, this subscription, they can be used at any time for anyone. So that's the advantage of that.
Any other questions, Ms. Lockett?
I have a question. How many computers do we have in the city?
We have...
I just
1,200.
That's a good question.
We have approximately 456 user accounts in our system, but desktops, that's going to run around 200. That's not counting all the laptops. So we've got close to 100 laptops. Most of those are used by law enforcement and patrol. And then, of course, the other mobile devices, iPads, et cetera. We've got quite a few. I don't know the exact number, but there are a lot.
I wasn't expecting the exact number.
Okay,
that's
okay.
enough.
Ms. Martinez?
David, is it common for us to dip into the general fund to cover an expense like this?
Yeah, so when we say that, it's actually budgeted within the funds account of that, but we'll say we're using the general fund, so it's funded and budgeted for, this is accounted for. So it's not dipping into that unassigned fund balance that was presented earlier.
With that being said, I mean, I think that, for one, at least in my industry, I know how essential it is to have a good office suite. I think the cost increase, I think, is relative to the inflation that we've seen in the last couple of years, so I think that's well justified. I'll make a motion for us to approve this.
First by Mr. Martinez,
Second.
second by Dr. Thompson. Mr. Stewart?
Could you tell me what the difference between who gets a G1 license and a G3 license?
Yes.
Why, what's the cost difference there?
Yeah, so we have actually 3 separate licenses. Exchange only, those are used by employees that may not use a computer at all, but they need an email address. We assign those to those employees. The G1 license gives the user the ability, or the employee the ability to not only have an email account, but to be able to use OneDrive. So file sharing, file collaboration, which a good many of our departments have, over the last 12 to 24 months, have started to utilize that a lot more, especially like fire department and other departments. They can share files easily with one another, like with the police department as well. Back in the day, we used to share files directly on a file server here in the office in City Hall, and you had to be in the office to be able to get to those files. But now, since we're in the government cloud with Microsoft, those can be accessed from anywhere with an internet connection. And then the G3s, the most expensive, and that was the one that went from $20 to $23. That is the entire suite. So that person has access to all of the Office products, so Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and they also have file collaboration, file backup, and I think that covers it. I think that's all of it. But just about everything that Microsoft offers comes with that particular license.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And council uses, we're very adept of using all of this, right?
Well,
I'm just teasing.
yeah, but no. Most of you, I believe the majority of you have G3 licenses, so.
Yeah.
But the G3s are nice too because they can be installed on up to 5 different computers. So if someone like Margot, she has a workstation, she can install it have it on her workstation here at work. She can install it at home on a laptop. So there's definitely some advantages to it. I think we do a pretty good job of keeping the additional licenses, the unused licenses, at a bare minimum, especially the G3s. We typically only have about 2 or 3 available at a time. If we need to order some, we have to put in for that order. Sometimes it can take 24, 48 hours. Sometimes it may take a little longer. So we like to keep just a couple on hand. But like I said, we do a pretty good job of keeping, the bare minimum with a number of free licenses available.
Great, appreciate it. Any other questions, comments?
Just give me an example. Why would you need an email address if you don't use a computer? What would you use it for?
Like if you are, say you're in sanitation and you want to be able to keep up with your pay stub, and if someone doesn't have a free email account, they want the city to provide them one, and so we would give them one of the G1 licenses, which is the least expensive, not the G1, I'm sorry, the exchange only. That way then we can help them set that email account up, and then we can help them with if they have problems getting logged into it, things like that.
So for instance, Mayor, I assume I have a city email, so I assume I have the G1 because that's the only thing I really use is email.
I'd have to go back and check to see what you guys have, but I'm pretty sure it's G3s, but I can double check that and let you know.
You have the suite, man.
I didn't know that. I got an email, I know that.
All right. Any other question? I had first and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our fourth item is request consideration to purchase the water service territory for Stonebridge Phase 2 from the Hammond Water District. Mr. McEwen.
This aligns with our strategic goal of assuring sustainable growth by pursuing long-term infrastructure projects through enhancing the water service territory. As you can see, there's a map attached to. We talked about this item a good bit as far as negotiations behind it, and then this area is within the city limits but wasn't within our water territory area. Mr. Scott Banks, our utilities director here, can go over the extent of how we came to the valuation and what the offer was and what we're asking you to do tonight. Mr. Banks.
Good evening. As Mr. McEwen said, this was discussed in a council work session earlier, and our current, but as a review, our current water service territory on the northeast side currently ends at Stonebridge Phase 1 on Calhoun Road. The current water service area for Stonebridge Phase 2, which is adjacent to Stonebridge Phase 1, belongs to Hammond Water District, and it'd be cost prohibitive for them to serve the proposed 22-lot subdivision. So based on your guidance and our current policy for purchasing sewer territory from the county, we calculated that the value of the territory is $96,900, which Hammond Water District has agreed to, and this falls within the amount that you authorized us to negotiate with them for. And as Mr. McEwen said, it meets our strategic goal for assuring sustainable growth and pursuing long-term infrastructure projects. It would be funded through our water budget. And with that, we're recommending the approval to purchase that water service territory from Hammond Water District in the amount of $96,900, which serves Phase 2 of Stonebridge.
Thank you. We've talked about this, but I'll open it up for questions or comments. Mr. Jeff Roberts.
Mr. Banks, just help me out here. Once we purchase this and then Stonebridge Phase 2 is being built out and designed and so on, the developer pays for engineering and,
Yes, sir.
and installation per our review
Per our
and approval.
with specifications, yes, sir.
Then they deed the system back, what they installed back to the city manager.
Correct. They'll install the major trunk lines and the meters, and then they will deed those to us, and with any necessary right-of-ways that go with that. But it will be installed per our specifications and requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Stewart.
Just a general question. I guess our city policy for purchasing sewer territory is the same for purchasing water territory? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, sir. We used we've been purchasing previously sewer territory, but this is, to my knowledge, this is the first time we purchased water territory, but we used the same method of calculation based on a 5-year purchase, or what they would revenue for 5 years for that area.
Okay, so how you calculate that 5-year period, that's just a standard formula that we use across the board.
Yes, sir.
For purchase of water or sewer, they're same figure, or same formula.
Yes,
May
sir.
not be the same dollar amount, but same formula.
Right.
Mr. McEwen?
That's correct. And so we actually do the valuation not on what our rates would be, but based on who we're buying it from, because it's a part of the valuation of that company. And so in this case, that's how we determine it. And so, like you said, we're usually doing that county sewer. We're buying into the county sewer on that same basis. And so we use that determination here. And it was the offer was accepted by their board and approved. And so we're asking you to accept it tonight. And then legal documents would be put together to officially make it the territory of the city of Anderson.
So with that, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve this, since this is within the discussed amount during our work session. And
We have a first by Mr. Harvey.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lockridge. Any further questions, discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Our next to last item is request consideration of a budget allocation for public safety. Ms. McEwen.
This item aligns with the advancement of the quality of life by providing a safe and secure environment through investment in public safety. Tonight, we're recommending approval of budget allocation to wages for the public safety divisions, police and fire, so it would be police, detention, and fire, not to exceed $500,000 for the period January to June 2024, which is our remaining current budget year.
Thank you. We did have a work session. But we'll open it back up for any additional questions or comments on the floor. Mr. Harvey?
Mr. McEwen, excuse me for not asking during the work session. When would this be implemented?
So it would be implemented, become effective January 1st, and it would be reflected in the payroll check dated January the 19th, 2024.
Any other questions?
Just have a general comment. I think this is well needed. Don't know if it's going to fix the problem entirely. I'd just like for us to continue to evaluate other departments to see what they may be doing to retain their officers, and anything that we can do to match what existing agencies are doing to help maintain. I know income is a lot, but there's other advantages that we might be able to take advantage of as well. So.
Thank you. No, I'm sorry.
I'm good.
Yeah, I'd also like to say it is well needed. We've talked about it. It's been quite a few years, I guess, since we've made some significant adjustments. But our investment in public safety is one of the primary focuses that I have, and many of you as well. But I'd also like to thank Margot and her team. But from our presentation earlier, it's it's evident that we have the funding in place to do so, and I think it's a great thing, and I'm very proud of our public safety and all employees, and look forward to working on the rest of the employees, as Donna mentioned in her retirement speech as well, and taking care of them. With that, Mayor, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
First by the Mayor Pro Tem, second by Dr. Thompson. Any further comments? I think we talked about labor costs and trying to control labor costs, and in a sense, I think it is maybe truing up some things. We see that with employees that might have been underpaid, teachers, for example, or healthcare workers, or law enforcement. So I think it's something that we have to keep in front of us. First and second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you for all the hard work. I know this was not a simple thing, but thank you. Our last item of business is to request consideration of a resolution to renew agreements with Bird Rides Incorporated to operate e-scooters in the city of Anderson, within the city limits of Anderson. Ms. McEwen?
Yes, before you, we have a one-year memorandum of understanding with Bird Rides Incorporated to have a fleet of stand-up electric scooters, e-scooters, within the city limits. The program within Anderson has been managed by a local operator who is responsible for maintaining, cleaning, staging, and collecting the fleet of scooters. The terms of agreement are unchanged from last year. Some of the highlights are included on your background sheet. I will say that Bird has been pushing micro-transit and has been implementing the scooters also around the city, around apartment complexes, doctor's offices, and hospitals. Let me give you just a little snapshot between last year and this year on ridership. Last year, when we first implemented it, we had 14,610 rides. This year, so far, not counting December, we have 7,144. So January was about 523, February 455, kind of peaks around May, June you see 1,000. Let's see here, that's about 800, and then back into the 500s. Would like council's input on this item tonight. We're more than happy to continue to work with Bird. Also, would like to hear council's opinion and based on community opinion, what your thoughts are on the item.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Newton?
I talked to Mr. McEwen earlier this week about it, because I was trying to get some feedback from my constituents, and overall, I would say what I've heard, particularly recently, has been more negative than positive with it. I think, and actually, I guess with the numbers, I mean, ridership has kind of gone down, it seems. I don't know if maybe the novelty's worn off a little bit. So again, I mean, that was just my council district that I represent, those that I've talked to, people who come downtown. The concerns I heard were, obviously, you're supposed to be 18 years or older, but, that's, you have a phone, you have the app on your phone. I think some of them are a little bit younger on there, and also, the thing that I guess I've seen, and I've heard the most about, has just been just the clutter, being kind of in the pedestrian walkway, the staging areas, not, I know sometimes in other places, particularly with bikes and things, they have corrals you've got to take them to, whereas, with this setup, I know it's not the same way. So that's kind of been my perspective that I've kind of gotten from my constituents. I didn't know what y'all heard from those that you represent.
I'd like to ask, how often are they being used? I see them parked all over the place and not being useful, not being used, rather.
Yeah, so I just provided a little bit of the information on that. So I was surprised actually by the number a little bit, because they're not just being used downtown. They do gather downtown, they restage them and that kind of thing. You will see them used downtown more on weekends, particularly the spring, summer, fall weekends, a lot of weddings that are down here, visitors and that kind of thing. But they've been also trying to spread them around the city, particularly up Clemson Boulevard in some areas. And they must be picking up some numbers there, because it's a little bit higher than I thought. I wouldn't think you would have 1,000 rides just for downtown in June, or 500 in January just downtown. But
I
about as
think,
best as I can answer your question.
Well,
I think, go ahead, Dr.
when I
Thomas.
see them parked, who's supposed to pick them up? I see them in my neighborhood, just on the sidewalk.
Well,
Yes, so there's a third-party operator
Yeah.
that's part of the agreement, and they come pick them up. They actually have 2 fleets, so they'll swap them out. Well, one's being charged, and then they have what's out there, and they'll swap them out.
I think they pick them up, I heard somebody say this, in the middle of the night, right?
Yes.
2 o'clock in the morning.
I
and-
think they're from Honey Path, or is the third-party agency. I saw them one night picking some up about 1 o'clock in the morning, and
What are you doing up there?
that was they were out on Whitner Street, right at the corner of Whitner and Orr Street. The police, you right there, just picking all of them up there. And what he's telling me, I've seen a lot down 29, like you're headed towards the jockey lot, just on the side of the road. He said there's a lot of thefts. The guy was telling me, and he said they've had some. He said, damn it, he said, we've had some that's thrown off the top of the parking garage. And, he said there's just a lot of stuff it got thrown off the top of the parking garage, the downtown parking garage, onto the sidewalk. Wow. And, but I've seen them way outside of the city limits just parked in a lot of instances. And, I thought they were just mainly, from my understanding, I thought they were just gonna be mainly for downtown. I didn't know we was expanding way out of, but I guess you can ride them till the battery goes out or whatever.
Well, yeah, how it works is it has a geofence around the city limits. However, the version that we have, the GPS isn't as accurate that I've experienced in some other places that have the newer versions. But it should stop after you pass that geofence, but sometimes it doesn't. So I guess somebody was able to, go a little bit farther, or they just hard pedaled it. I don't know.
David, let me ask this question. I have heard, and I'm not sure if this is true or not, that some people actually use that to get to work.
We do have some that have done that, and Bird has provided some of that pattern
Do they
for
have a
us.
special deal for those kind of folks?
No special deals. It's still the same thing, but it does on the app. As you use it, it'll send you like 20% coupon and stuff as you use it more, and so it kind of recognizes that and keeps up with it.
I mean, Mike,
Personally, I haven't had anybody at all to complain from my area.
I think it's also this whole concept of micro transit, just trying to get people to and from. Even our bike and pedestrian trails, the micro transit, just trying to get people, they don't emit carbon, or do they?
No, they don't.
No, they don't emit carbon, they're electric. And so, but that's a good point. I've seen them in retail shopping, Target, you know, so that's telling me, Walmart, that's telling me people are going, you know, and purchasing things, and using them.
How many do we
as far as
have?
transportation.
How many do we have?
There's about 50 of them.
Just 50?
Yeah, they have there'll be about 50 out at one time because they switch them, so I guess there's.
So the contract, what's the out on the contract?
So just 30 days prior to written notice.
30 days?
And you're out of it.
Ms. Harvey?
So, Mr. McEwen, you know, whenever we first started these, I wasn't 100% on board with it. Andrew, but it seemed to be like that there was something. Have any accidents been reported that we are aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. From my office, we haven't received any complaints or accidents or anything like that, or been notified of any.
I assume there would have been.
I would too. I mean, I've used them in Fort Lauderdale, and I saw a lot of people wreck and run into cars and other things, but we haven't seemed to have that same issue. We did ask them to do a couple things though. We adjusted some things. We had them where they slow down for downtown. I think it slows down to 12 miles per hour, whereas like elsewhere in the city you can go up to 22 miles per hour. We geofence some other areas to protect it so it can't run.
Like so AU, Anderson University?
Yeah, Anderson University. The campus itself is geofenced, but around it, some students that were kind of using them come from off campus to this side of campus. And
One thing we learned too is the mall is geofenced.
No kidding.
Yeah, well, that was first year complaint. First year complaint. Now that you mention it, we did have a group that thought you could just drive through the mall with them, and that didn't happen. So, but we corrected that pretty quickly by geofencing the mall, and it doesn't work anymore.
So what do you think, guys?
Well, I just want to say this. I think conceptually, I like the idea. I can tell you, I've talked to a few people about this, and just about everybody I've talked to has been pretty indifferent, which kind of leads me to a place of pause. I guess I'm okay with it. I guess I would ask the council to consider if we're just kind of okay with something, does that mean it's on borrowed time, or does that mean that it's got a chance to rebound? I think that we may need to put some higher expectations on the vendor as far as cleanup and clutter, because I just don't see it trending in the right direction, in my opinion.
And that is, Mr. Martinez, that could be an option if that's something council would like us to explore, is that we can actually designate exactly where they should go and be left, and clean up, kind of what Mr. Newt was saying, where they're kind of in the way, can be in the way on Main Street particularly. And so that's something we can work with the vendor on, work with the contractor on that they contract with, and then ultimately, if they don't meet those standards, it's always a 30-day written notice as well, so.
Are they making money out of this?
Yes. They wouldn't be doing it unless they're making money.
Ms. Locke?
The question I have is, we have a situation where we have businesses downtown. What do they think about the Verde schools? Do they have a positive or negative? I've talked to one or two, and they don't really have opinion one way or
I guess the word's kind of what Mr. Martinez says, kind of indifferent, and it's, we haven't received any complaints from any of them this year. The first year, there was kind of some requests here and there to do a couple things, and we did that. It's been kind of quiet over this year.
The ones I've talked to, the businesses, they just don't, it really doesn't make a difference one way or the other.
Right.
As far as revenue to the city, are they very small percentage of revenue off of these things coming into the city?
I believe just their business license fee, that's it. Yeah.
And that's just on their dollar, that's based on what they generate.
Sure, yeah.
Not off the per scooter or nothing like, it's not like an individual like, Grubhub or nothing like, it's just one company is,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
Mhm.
So, do I have a entertain a motion to approve?
Hey, what do you need this motion for?
We're trying to, we have a new contract with them.
What we do,
A new agreement.
I recommend that we give them another chance. You said 1 year, didn't we?
1 year
1 year.
It can be canceled.
in 30 days. So is that a motion?
1 year.
I'll second that with the expectation that, you know, we go back to the operator and let them know that, hey, look, you know, the expectation needs to be a little bit higher.
level of risen.
Yeah.
And I
Don't throw
think,
money off the buildings.
well, a first and a second, that probably just happened one time. But one time is too many. But I do agree that, can't remember where I was, but in some bigger cities, I don't know if we're there yet, but they have a volunteers that do things like, you know, help people with directions and, hey, you need to park that right here, that type of thing. So, I don't know, and I almost kind of agree that, I think it's an option that we have in our city, whether that be e-scooters or bikes. Sometimes when you're in bigger cities, you know, like in Charlotte, it seems like they use them a lot. But, you know, places like Nashville or Atlanta, I think it's just the connectivity of a downtown, probably, maybe.
I spent a good bit of time at Duke University, in the hospital area and the campus. They use them very heavily there. Something I would want to maybe talk to AU about, because they were being used there, then it kind of backed off. But what Duke University will do, they'll geofence just where the cathedral is, or historic part of the campus, but you can ride it right up to where the bike racks are. Now, they're really good, to your point, though, about putting it right at the bike rack and it staying there, and they're being positioning a lot better than what I've observed here as well. Tells me they probably have a better operator, but you can use them all throughout Durham, North Carolina, to go where you need to go. So I know it's a big use by students I've seen there.
And then I see Kyle's even point too, you know, and I've been guilty of picking them up and putting them back out of the sidewalk too, I think. You know, that's,
I didn't know if there were, in other places, maybe corrals that have been constructed to where,
yeah.
you know, near Doolittle.
Well, I think-
Well, let me talk to them about that, yeah.
I think it's a good idea to do that.
And we want to look at the e-bikes too as an option. And so those have gotten better. When they first came out, they weren't very good. Actually, the scooters were a whole lot better, and people they ran out of batteries really quick, and I know Graham will struggle with that. So we want to dive into that, which you can have a process there where the e-bike has to come back to the actual check-in, check-out location and can't just be left somewhere. So that could be another mobility option for us.
Good.
I think the bigger the city, the more they're used.
Yes, ma'am.
A big city like ours, you know, we have to get used to that.
Good, huh?
What, e-bikes or?
Can you just verify the number of 50 is all they have? It's just, maybe because they, like, me and the mayor was talking, they stage them here, they're there, and they just seem like there's so many more bikes than 50 throughout the city. That, you know, as you just ride and look at groups of them.
Yeah, I'll ask them what their full fleet is. I just counted on the out today. And so, you know, what they had out there, so they could switch them out, batteries go dead, that kind of thing. So my understanding is, you know, they have double and then they swap them out. But I'll check into that.
Well, good. Good discussion. Let's keep an eye on them. Even us, let's be more attentive to it. And have a first and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously, this resolution to renew the agreement. No further business. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. You might mention Christmas, and you might mention this at the last meeting for the year.
That's right. Got all the Christmas shopping done, our last meeting of the year. We won't be back in force until 2024. And, I don't know, Merry Christmas, guys.
Merry Christmas to you.
I would like to ask, that you continue to pray for my son Darryl.
Yes, ma'am.
He's still in Charleston, the medical center. So he's hanging in there, so I really appreciate the prayers for us.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Harvey?
I appreciate, I'd like to say real quick that, what Margot did with her department, with the presentation from the financials in the work session and also from our audit. I know that's a lot of hard work and stress, and I appreciate David's leadership, his leadership team, and I'm thankful for all of our city employees, especially during this season of Christmas, and wish each one of them health and prosperity, and look forward to the holiday season.
One other comment, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I'd just like to say, and Kyle, you can echo on this, but just congratulations to the West Side Rams football team, 4A state champion. It's been a long time since they've been a state champion, so if there's any players, parents, administration, just like the coaches, thank you for the great job that you've done, and we're very proud of you from the Anderson City Council.
I like to add to that a little bit because I noticed that, I think it was Daniel that won some kind of a.
They won the state championship.
And the whole city just went wild about it. I don't know if we've done enough expression of thank you to the West Side. I think we should really go out 50 years to bring back a title like that from West Side High School, even in high school. I just think we as a council should show more appreciation. I don't know what it should be, but something great to say, hey guys.
Mr. Newton and I have actually discussed that, and so our plan in some type of way is to recognize them at the first meeting in January. From my point. And then the other point too, I don't know if you realized it, I think Jeff and Lewis and who else was on Christmas, Kyle, not often, just the way it worked out, they won the state championship Saturday, and they were able to have their own parade Sunday at the Christmas parade.
They were a crowd
And
favorite.
we probably had, what do you think, Kyle, 30, 40 kids?
Oh, yeah.
Coaches and 30 and 40 kids, and they actually got their own parade. So that was pretty cool.
I think I agree, Councilman Stewart. I think it's awesome for the community. I had the opportunity to take my two boys out there to welcome them home that night when they came back.
Yeah, that was a great video.
It was quite a festive atmosphere. And when the buses pulled in, it was a neat thing to be a part of.
Did you see that video, Dr. Thomas?
I didn't see that.
We'll show it to you.
It certainly, it
it's on
was fun.
Facebook, I think.
I enjoyed it. It was, and congratulations to them.
For sure.
Congratulations to you, Mayor, and Corey, who's the principal at.
More so Corey. He hired the guy, so.
Should have a lot of job security there.
Yes, so, anyway, thank you. I don't know if we had a motion, I got distracted. Huh? First, second?
Second.
By Mr. Harbin. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We stand adjourned.
Oh, man.
It was quite, it was small. That place was rocking.
Oh, yeah.
See you later.